What happens when television's most beloved morning show host faces off against royalty, turned rogue in a battle that nobody saw coming? In just 34 seconds, one explosive comment would turn a routine interview into the most shocking live television meltdown of the year, leaving viewers across Britain absolutely stunned, and one very famous guest storming off set in complete disgrace. Last night on Good Morning Britain, what started as a simple promotional interview quickly spiraled into television chaos when Meghan Markle found herself completely outmatched by the sharp wit and unwavering professionalism of Susanna Reid. This is the exclusive inside story of how one of the most anticipated interviews of the year became an absolute disaster for the Duchess of Sussex. The morning began like any other at the ITV studios in London. Susanna Reid, radiant in her signature navy blazer, was preparing for what her producers had promised would be a friendly chat with Meghan about her latest charitable endeavors. The lighting crew had spent extra time making sure everything looked perfect, and the makeup team had been briefed to expect a straightforward, positive segment that would run for about 12 minutes. Meghan arrived at the studio complex in a sleek black car, flanked by what seemed like an unusually large security detail for a morning television appearance. She swept through the building wearing an expensive cream-colored coat and oversized sunglasses, barely acknowledging the staff members who greeted her with warm smiles. The production team noted that she seemed tense, but they attributed this to normal pre-interview nerves. As Meghan settled into the famous red sofa opposite Susanna, viewers at home had no idea they were about to witness television history in the making. The cameras rolled, the familiar Good Morning Britain theme music faded out, and Susanna began with her trademark warmth and professionalism. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Good Morning Britain. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined this morning by Meghan Markle, who is here to talk about her exciting new projects and her continued commitment to charitable work around the world. Susanna's smile was genuine and welcoming, exactly what viewers had come to expect from one of Britain's most trusted television presenters. She had done her homework, as always, preparing thoughtful questions that would allow Meghan to share her story in a positive light. Meghan's response, however, was surprisingly cold. "Thank you for having me, Susanna. Though I must say, I hope this conversation will be more balanced than some of the coverage I've received from British media lately." The comment caught Susanna completely off guard. This wasn't the friendly tone that had been discussed during the pre-interview briefing, but being the consummate professional she is, Susanna maintained her composure and tried to steer the conversation back on track. "Of course, Meghan. We're here to talk about your wonderful work with various charities and your upcoming projects. I understand you've been particularly passionate about education initiatives for young women." Instead of embracing this obvious opportunity to discuss something positive, Meghan's expression grew even more stern. "That's exactly what I mean, Susanna. The way you just phrased that question shows the kind of subtle bias I've been dealing with. You said, 'I understand,' as if you're surprised that I would care about education." Susanna's eyebrows raised slightly, and viewers could see her processing this unexpected accusation. "I'm sorry, Meghan, but I think there might be a misunderstanding. I was simply trying to—" "There's no misunderstanding," Meghan interrupted sharply. "I've been watching British television for years now, and I know exactly how these interviews are supposed to go. You ask seemingly innocent questions that are actually designed to make me look bad." The tension in the studio was becoming palpable. Camera operators exchanged glances, and the production team in the control room began to realize this interview was taking a very different direction than anyone had anticipated. Susanna, however, remained completely professional. "Meghan, I can assure you that's not the case at all. We invited you here today because we wanted to give you a platform to share the positive work you're doing. Perhaps we could talk about your recent visit to the Children's Hospital in Manchester?" "See, there you go again." Meghan's voice was rising now, and her carefully composed media training facade was beginning to crack. "You're trying to control the narrative by steering me towards safe topics. What about the real issues? What about the way your network has treated me and my family?" Susanna's professionalism was truly remarkable in this moment. Despite being blindsided by these accusations, she maintained her calm demeanor and tried once again to redirect the conversation constructively. "Meghan, if you have concerns about our coverage, I'd be happy to discuss that. But this morning, we really hope to focus on your positive work and give you the opportunity to share your message with our viewers." "Your viewers?" Meghan's laugh was bitter and sharp. "Your viewers have been fed a steady diet of negative stories about me for years, and now you want to pretend like this is some kind of friendly chat? I don't think so." The camera captured every moment of this increasingly uncomfortable exchange, and viewers across Britain were glued to their screens, unable to believe what they were witnessing. This was live television at its most unpredictable, and Susanna Reid was handling it with the grace and professionalism that had made her one of the most respected hosts in the country. "I understand you may have frustrations," Susanna said carefully, "but I think our viewers would really love to hear about the positive impact you're making. Could you tell us about your recent work with literacy programs?" Meghan's response would prove to be the beginning of the end of this disastrous interview. "Literacy programs?" Meghan's voice dripped with disdain as she leaned forward in her chair, her carefully maintained composure completely abandoned now. "You really think you can just brush aside everything I've been through and focus on some feel-good story about reading to children?" Susanna's patience was truly extraordinary. Any other host might have become defensive or confrontational, but she remained steady and professional, even as the situation continued to deteriorate before her eyes. "I'm not trying to brush anything aside, Meghan, but our viewers tuned in this morning expecting to hear about your charitable work, and I think that's what would be most valuable for them to learn about." "What would be most valuable," Meghan shot back, "is for them to hear the truth about how this network and others like it have systematically tried to destroy my reputation from the moment I married into the royal family." The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Susanna could have easily become defensive about her network or her own integrity as a journalist. Instead, she demonstrated why she had earned the respect and admiration of millions of viewers over her distinguished career. "Meghan, that's quite a serious allegation. Can you give me specific examples of coverage from Good Morning Britain that you feel was unfair?" It was a perfectly reasonable question, delivered with calm professionalism. Meghan, however, seemed to interpret even this measured response as an attack. "Specific examples?" Her voice was getting louder now, and the microphone was picking up every sharp edge of her growing anger. "How about the fact that every single story about me focuses on controversy instead of the good work I'm trying to do? How about the way your reporters constantly question my motives?" Susanna nodded thoughtfully, still maintaining her professional demeanor despite the increasingly hostile atmosphere. "I can understand why that would be frustrating. Perhaps this is an opportunity for you to set the record straight and tell our viewers about the work that's most important to you." "You're not listening!" Meghan's frustration exploded into full view. "I shouldn't have to defend myself or prove my worth to your audience. The fact that you think I need to set the record straight proves exactly what I'm talking about." The irony of the situation was becoming clear to viewers watching at home. Here was Susanna Reid, one of the most fair and balanced presenters on British television, being accused of bias while she bent over backwards to give her guest every opportunity to share her message. Meanwhile, Meghan was proving to be her own worst enemy, turning what could have been positive publicity into a public relations disaster. "I apologize if my words came across wrong," Susanna said with genuine sincerity. "That wasn't my intention at all. Why don't you tell me what message you most want to share with people watching this morning?" Instead of seizing this olive branch, Meghan seemed determined to escalate the conflict further. "The message I want to share is that I'm tired of being treated like a criminal for marrying someone I love. I'm tired of having my every word twisted and my every action scrutinized by people who have never walked in my shoes." "That does sound incredibly difficult," Susanna acknowledged with genuine empathy. "But surely there must be aspects of your platform that you find rewarding. The ability to bring attention to causes you care about?" "There you go again." Meghan's voice cracked with emotion, but it was anger rather than sadness that dominated her tone. "You're trying to find the silver lining, trying to make this all seem positive and manageable, but you have no idea what it's like to have your life dissected by strangers every single day." Susanna's response demonstrated exactly why she had become one of Britain's most trusted journalists. Instead of taking offense or becoming defensive, she showed genuine human compassion. "You're absolutely right, Meghan. I can't imagine what that experience must be like for you. It sounds incredibly isolating and painful." For just a moment, it seemed like Meghan might soften, might recognize the genuine empathy being offered to her. But instead, she interpreted even this kindness as manipulation. "Don't patronize me, Susanna. I know exactly what you're doing. You're trying to make me seem emotional and unstable, so that tomorrow's headlines will be about my outburst instead of the legitimate concerns I'm raising about media coverage." The accusation was so unfair and so far removed from reality that even the most charitable viewer would have struggled to see Meghan's point. Susanna had been nothing but professional, patient, and empathetic throughout this entire ordeal. "That's not what I'm trying to do at all," Susanna replied calmly. "I was simply acknowledging that the situation you're describing sounds very challenging." "Challenging?" Meghan's laugh was harsh and bitter. "It's not challenging, Susanna. It's harassment. It's a coordinated campaign to drive me out of public life, and networks like yours are complicit in it." The weight of this accusation was enormous. Meghan was essentially claiming that Good Morning Britain, one of the UK's most respected news programs, was part of some conspiracy against her. It was a serious charge that demanded a serious response. Susanna handled it with the same professionalism she had shown throughout this increasingly difficult interview. That's a very serious allegation, Meghan. If you truly believe that's the case, perhaps you could share some specific instances where you feel our coverage crossed the line? I shouldn't have to provide you with a list of your own network's failures, Meghan snapped. The fact that you're asking me to prove it just shows how deep the problem goes. It was becoming clear to everyone watching that Meghan had no specific examples to offer, no concrete evidence to support her inflammatory claims. She was simply lashing out, and Susanna Reid had become the unfortunate target of her frustration. The final straw was about to come, and it would arrive in the form of one comment that would make this interview unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. Susanna took a deep breath, her professionalism never wavering despite the increasingly hostile atmosphere in the studio. She made one final attempt to salvage something positive from this disastrous interview. Meghan, I can see that you're clearly passionate about these issues, and I respect that. Perhaps we could use the remaining time to talk about solutions? What changes would you like to see in media coverage going forward? It was a perfectly reasonable question, offered with genuine sincerity and a desire to give Meghan a constructive platform. Any media-savvy guest would have seized this opportunity to pivot towards something positive. Instead, Meghan chose to deliver the comment that would end her television appearance in complete disgrace. Solutions? Meghan's voice rose to a pitch that made several crew members wince. The solution is for people like you to stop pretending to be neutral when you're clearly part of the problem. The solution is for you to admit that you've been complicit in a campaign of harassment against me and my family. Meghan, Susanna said carefully, I have to respectfully disagree with that characterization. We invited you here today in good faith to discuss your work and give you a platform to share your message. Good faith? Meghan's composure finally shattered completely. There is nothing good faith about this interview. You've been trying to trap me from the very first question, and now you're sitting there acting like you're some kind of innocent victim. The irony was stunning. Here was Susanna Reid, who had shown nothing but patience and professionalism throughout this ordeal, being accused of victimization by someone who had turned what should have been a positive interview into a personal attack session. I'm not trying to trap anyone, Susanna replied with remarkable calm. I'm simply trying to have a conversation. A conversation? Meghan stood up abruptly, her microphone still attached and broadcasting every word to millions of viewers. This isn't a conversation. This is an ambush. And I refuse to sit here and be treated like this any longer. The moment that followed would be replayed countless times on social media and news programs around the world. Meghan reached for her microphone pack with shaking hands, fumbling with the equipment as her anger made her movements clumsy and erratic. Meghan, please, Susanna said gently. Why don't you sit back down? And we can. Don't tell me what to do! Meghan's voice cracked with fury. I am done being told what to do by people who have never shown me an ounce of respect or basic human decency. The production team in the control room was frantically trying to figure out how to handle this unprecedented situation. Should they cut to commercial? Should they try to calm things down? In the end, they decided to keep rolling, capturing every moment of this spectacular meltdown for posterity. Susanna remained seated, maintaining her dignity even as chaos erupted around her. I understand you're upset, but I think there might be a misunderstanding about. There's no misunderstanding. Meghan yanked the microphone pack from her belt with such force that the wire sparked against the metal clasp. The only misunderstanding is that I thought I could come on this show and be treated with basic respect. You have been treated with respect, Susanna said firmly, finally allowing a note of steel to enter her voice. I've been nothing but courteous and professional throughout this entire interview. It was the first time Susanna had defended herself directly, and she was absolutely right. Any objective viewer could see that she had bent over backwards to accommodate Meghan's increasingly unreasonable behavior. Courteous? Meghan's laugh was sharp and bitter as she gathered her expensive handbag and coat. You call this courteous? You've spent the last 15 minutes trying to manipulate me and control the narrative. I've spent the last 15 minutes trying to give you a platform to share your message, Susanna replied with quiet dignity. That's what we agreed to do when you accepted our invitation. The truth of this statement seemed to penetrate Meghan's anger for just a moment, and viewers could see a flicker of uncertainty cross her face. But instead of acknowledging her mistake or attempting to salvage the situation, she doubled down on her destructive path. Your platform comes with strings attached, she declared, pointing an accusatory finger at Susanna. And I refuse to dance to your tune anymore. With that, Meghan stormed toward the studio exit, her heels clicking angrily against the polished floor. The camera operators, trained professionals who had seen everything in their years of live television, managed to capture her departure without making it look sensationalized or exploitative. Susanna watched her go with a mixture of sadness and bewilderment. When the studio door slammed shut behind Meghan, she turned back to the camera with the composure that had made her one of Britain's most beloved television personalities. "Well," she said with a slight shake of her head, "that was certainly unexpected. I want to apologize to our viewers for how that interview unfolded. It was never our intention for things to become so heated." Even in this moment of professional embarrassment, Susanna's first thought was for her audience and their experience. She didn't blame Meghan publicly or make excuses for what had just happened. She simply acknowledged the situation with grace and moved on. "We'll be right back after this break with more of Good Morning Britain," she continued, her smile returning as she demonstrated why she had earned the loyalty and respect of millions of viewers over the years. As the show cut to commercial, the studio fell into stunned silence. What had started as a routine promotional interview had become one of the most dramatic moments in recent television history. And it was all because one guest had chosen confrontation over conversation, accusation over cooperation. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. Susanna Reid had shown exactly why she was considered one of the finest presenters in British television, while Meghan Markle had demonstrated what happens when someone mistakes a platform for a battleground. The viewers had witnessed it all, and they would be talking about it for weeks to come.